When a god requires something done, with precision, with patience, and without question, what kind of being do they send? Armies? No. Prophets? Maybe. But usually it's something quieter than that. Something focused. Something enduring. Because scattered across the multiverse, there exists a creature that has all of these traits, and more. It won't seek attention, nor does it try to claim dominion, and yet has been trusted to be the steward of these divine mandates for ages beyond memory. A celestial being known to us as the Couatl. Open your books to page 82 and read carefully, because chances are this isn't a creature you'll encounter by accident. Those lucky enough to have witnessed a Couatl in its true form almost universally tell of a creature so mesmerizing, so beautiful, that it steals their breath away. A long serpentine body, 12 feet in length and weighing up to 1,800 pounds, covered not in scales alone, but in radiant feathers that catch the light like stained glass. Wings spread wide, they shimmer with colors that seem to shift as they move. And eyes that knowingly linger for just a moment too long, seeing you for who you truly are. Because these creatures possess a keen intellect and beauty that is only surpassed by their wisdom. Generally speaking, you won't just stumble upon these beings in the material plane, at least not in their true form. Usually you'll find them moving about on the ethereal plane, which I believe is tied to their next interesting trait, because a Couatl can live for ages without sustenance, even surviving without air. That's not to say they won't ever hunt, but when they do, it's simply not out of necessity. But for the most part, the Couatl will wander the plains with its divine mandate in mind, either protecting their deity's secrets or actively looking to enact their will. And if you find yourself within its vicinity, it almost certainly already knows you're there. To understand the Couatl, you must look further back than most records can reach. With these creatures being so rare, their origin stories are seemingly always changing. But the one thing they all have in common is that they all require us to go back to an age when the world was young, when the gods still directly shaped the world with intent, when their influence wasn't so distant, but more immediate. More specifically, the origins of the Couatl lay with the Serpent clans during the Days of Thunder. Having realized that their empire was falling, the Serpent fled to other planes of existence, and became a nomadic species, never staying in one place for more than a generation. This life would harden the Serpent, leading many to embrace their darker nature, but there were a few who pushed back, who knew their kind were treading down a dangerous path, and these Serpent broke from their peers and begun praying to the deity known as Jazirian, a fragment of the world serpent, and it was through Jazirian that the Couatls were created, directly transformed from those benevolent Serpent. So they weren't a result of experiments, nor were they born into the wilds, but they were formed with purpose already etched into their being, each one entrusted with a task, to guard something, or to protect someone, or to ensure that a piece of knowledge or place of power doesn't fall into the wrong hands. No temples were raised in their honor, no expectation of worship, only purpose. And so they were sent out into the world with these mandates in mind. Some remained bound to ancient ruins, older than the civilizations that now surround them. Some watch over bloodlines, guiding them in subtle ways across generations. And others wait beside relics whose importance has long since been forgotten by everyone except them. Time doesn't weigh on a Couatl in the same way it does for mortals. Though they can and will die after a period of time, the ages in which Couatl exist are beyond what you and I might consider a lifetime, because they correspond to a celestial calendar or some other divine chronology. So years pass, empires rise and fall, languages change, and still they watch. If you were to stand before a Couatl in its true form, you wouldn't be met with hostility, but also you probably wouldn't be met with any large amount of warmth either. There's a distance to these creatures, a distance one can only expect from something so close to divinity. A sense that you are being measured, certainly for who you are, but also who you could be. Couatls understand mortals, their fears, their ambitions, their capacity for both kindness and cruelty. It's said that they can see the aura of whoever they talk to, and depending on your disposition, the aura will display differently to the Couatl. This is because their keen eyes have the ability known as true seeing, allowing them to see things as they truly are, as well as into the ethereal plane. Moreover, they rarely reveal themselves openly. Instead, they walk the world in other shapes. A traveler on the road, a quiet voice offering guidance, a stranger who poses a question that's just a bit more pointed than they usually are. This is how they have so much insight into us mortals. Their ability to change shapes at will allows them to interact with us freely and at our level, unhindered by their appearance. So they observe, they inquire, they wait for choices to be made. Because generally, a Couatl won't force the path forward, it merely ensures the right path remains possible. And when it acts, it does so with intent already decided long before the moment arrives. If one speaks to you plainly, if it shows itself without hesitation, then you've likely found yourself a part of some divine machinations, or something in your world has already begun to unravel. Now, there is power in a Couatl. It's nothing dramatic, nor is it the kind that announces itself with fire and thunder, but something far more controlled. The Couatl can take on many forms and blend into nearly any place. This manifests as the Couatl being able to take the form of any humanoid or beast, so long as it's around the same strength as the Couatl itself. So don't worry, it's not going to take the form of a Tarrasque. This is perhaps the signature ability of this divine guardian, and it's what allows them to guide the world in whichever direction their divine mandate has dictated. On top of that, its mind reaches further than most. In fact, Couatls are inherently psionic creatures at heart. This allows them to intuitively know what lays in the hearts of those it talks to, which empowers them to gather truths that others would rather remain hidden. But it reaches much further than even that, because it's said that they have a somewhat limited form of future sight. Yes, truly, because the Couatl is known to be able to see its own demise up to a century in advance. Not the precise nature of it, just that it will happen and when. But regardless, this is vital. As I mentioned before, these creatures live their lives with purpose. And once they sense their relatively imminent demise, if their plans are unfinished, then they can either expedite things or plan accordingly. This might even require that they reproduce after a fashion, but it's not exactly what one might think. Near the end of the Couatl's life, especially if their work is ongoing, they'll lay a wondrous rainbow-hued egg, and once that Couatl dies, after a period of time, perhaps a single day, the very same Couatl who laid the egg will hatch from it, fully grown and renewed to serve for another age, carrying with it the same mandate as the one who came before. But sometimes, even for a creature like this, combat can be unavoidable. If forced into this position, the Couatl will act with precision, a single strike, venom that steals consciousness in an instant. Now, some of the most ancient texts state that the venom could kill one outright, and perhaps their bite has evolved over time, but it's certainly nothing to be trifled with one way or another. Furthermore, magic seems to bend less easily around it, specifically those of a psionic nature, and attempts to influence or control it often falter before they can take hold. Honestly, everything about a Couatl seems to serve the same end: awareness, positioning, timing. Perhaps this was Jazirian's plan all along, because what better creature to enact your will than one who can see the true nature of the creatures around it, and can also shrug off any unwanted prying eyes trying to peer into its mind. Anyways, regarding combat, oftentimes by the time a conflict reaches its peak, the outcome has already been decided. With the Couatl having foreknowledge of its own demise, it can act with the confidence that today is not the day that it dies. So I would perhaps think twice if a Couatl is willing to engage, because statistically, it's not going to work out in your favor. When it comes to the role of Couatls in our world, you won't often find stories that place a Couatl at their center. That's not where it exists, at least not evidently. Instead, you'll find its influence at the edges, a temple that remains untouched despite countless attempts to plunder it, a relic that never quite falls into the wrong hands, a journey that succeeds because of something small, something easily overlooked, a word spoken at the right time, a warning given just before it's needed, a presence guiding events without ever stepping into the light. Some adventurers may cross paths with a Couatl and never realize it. Others may come to understand long after the encounter has passed that they were being watched, evaluated, perhaps even protected. In closing, every Couatl is created for a reason, a purpose defined at the moment of its making, like a mandate eternally etched into its psyche. And for some, that purpose is fulfilled. What becomes of them afterwards is not always recorded. Some are said to simply fade, their task complete, their place in the world no longer required. Others remain, lingering at the edge of their duty, watching, even when it might seem like there's nothing left to guard, waiting for a sign that they're needed once more. And somewhere beyond the sight of those who rush through their lives without question, one of them may still be there, ensuring that the world unfolds as it must. Thanks for listening. Alright guys, that's the end of this one, the Couatl. Hope you liked it. Make sure to leave a comment on the video. I don't know if you saw the last video we did, but it pushed it to so many more people. Anyways, I'll see you for the next one, so be safe, take care, and happy trails.